completing the square. So if we have a square, if this was a square, the length and the width would be exactly the same. That's what we want to happen. If we were able to factor this, this is not factorable. If we were able to factor this, it wouldn't be a square the way it is now. So we need to figure out what can we do to make this a square. Well, we're going to use what we've learned from factoring. We know that the first term is going to go here. Now, because of this last term, this is why it's not a square. So we're not going to place that last term there. But we do need to remember that these middle two terms add up to that middle term. So we wanted these to add up to a negative 6x. But to make this a square, these two would have to be exactly the same. The only way these can be exactly the same and get a negative 6x is if they are both negative 3x. Now when I add these two, I get negative 6x. I remember that the diagonals, the product has to be the same. The product of negative 3x and negative 3x is 9x squared. So if this product is 9x squared, this product must be 9x squared. The only way to make this be 9x squared is if we have a 9 here. That means my last term, instead of being a 7, it needs to be a 9. So I'm going to have to add something to this equation because the last term right now is a 7. So I have x squared minus 6x plus 7, but I need it to be a 9, so I'm going to add 2. But remember, whatever you do to one side of an equation, you always have to do to the other side. So I'm going to add 2 on the other side of the equation as well. Now I'm just going to combine these like terms and simplify. So I have x squared minus 6x plus 9 equals 2. Now when I go ahead and factor this, I'm going to see that I have x minus 3 times x minus 3. So the length and the width are the same. We did make a square. We completed the square. So I know that I'm going to be able to factor this x minus 3 times x minus 3 equals 2. Now I'm multiplying two of the same exact thing. That means I am squaring this. So I'm going to rewrite this as x minus 3 quantity squared equals 2. Now I have this in the form something being squared equals something else. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides. So I'm taking the square root of x minus 3 squared equals, because I'm taking the square root, it needs to be the positive or negative square root of 2. Because I am taking the square root, it needs to be both options. When I take the square root over here, I'm left with x minus 3 equals, now this is an irrational number. So if you put this in your calculator, you're going to get a big long number, repeating, non-repeating decimal. So I'm going to leave it plus or minus root 2. Now if I'm going to solve this for x, I have to add 3 to both sides. So x equals, adding 3, it would be a positive 3 plus or minus square root of 2. So the plus or minus actually gives us the two different roots. So I'm going to split this off into two different options. X equals 3 minus the square root of 2. The other option, x equals 3 plus the square root of 2. Now, if the problem does not tell you to change this to a decimal, you're going to leave it like this, and these are our two roots. Sometimes you will need to change it to a decimal. So we'll use our calculator, and I'm going to start with this one. So this is 3 minus, now with this calculator you have to put the number in first and then take the square root, and that equals 1.5, I'm going to say 1.59. 1.59, I'm rounding to the hundredths place. So let's take a look at this one. It starts the same way. X equals, we're starting with 3, but this time I'm adding the square root of 2, so that equals 4.41. 4.41. Actually, it's approximately equal to, because I had to round.